The precursors didn't send their strongest first, they sent a test. And over the next decade, every kaiju that crawled out of the breach was bigger, meaner, and more specifically designed to kill the machines we built to stop them. So let's rank every single one, from the proof of concept beast that started a war to the fused nightmare that nearly ended our species. Trespasser. Trespasser is the weakest kaiju on this list, and it also might be the most important one. Here's the thing, when this creature crawled out of the breach in 2013 and hit San Francisco, nothing existed to fight it. No Jaegers, no shatter domes, no drift technology, just conventional military hardware, and a whole lot of panic. It took 6 days and 3 cities worth of destruction before they finally brought it down with everything they had. It's classified as a category 3, which sounds impressive until you realize it has 0 special abilities. No acid, no EMP, no flight, just raw size, and the fact that nobody had ever seen anything like it before. But that's exactly why it matters. Trespasser is the precursor's proof of concept, their first test run through the breach to see if Earth could even be invaded. And the answer was a resounding yes, because one single creature forced humanity to rebuild its entire military infrastructure from scratch. Weak by modern standards? Absolutely. But at least Trespasser only had to deal with tanks and jets. The next one on our list had to face an actual Jaeger, and it still managed to traumatize an entire generation. Onibaba. Onibaba is not remembered for being strong. It's remembered for what it did to a little girl in a blue coat. In terms of actual combat performance, Onibaba is almost embarrassingly straightforward. It attacks Tokyo in 2016, brings 0 tricks to the table, no EMP, no acid, no flight. It's a giant crustacean whose entire strategy is be large and walk forward. Coyote Tango puts it down with shoulder-mounted artillery. 0 Jaeger kills, not even close. But here's where it gets complicated. The film doesn't show you that fight from the cockpit. It shows you from the ground through the eyes of a terrified child running through rubble completely alone. And that single sequence does more emotional damage than most kaiju do physical damage across an entire movie. Onibaba isn't a battlefield threat, it's a trauma delivery system. It exists to break Makomori and define her entire character arc, which honestly is more effective than any kill count. But if Onibaba is the kaiju you fear as a child, Knifehead is the one that teaches you Jaegers can actually lose. Knifehead. Before Knifehead, Jaegers were heroes. Action figures, magazine covers, the whole deal. Pilots were celebrities. Humanity had this thing figured out. Giant monsters show up, giant robots punch them, everybody goes home. Then Knifehead ruined everything. Here's what happens. Gypsy Danger intercepts this category 3 off the coast of Anchorage in 2020. Routine deployment. Raleigh and Yancey Beckett are experienced pilots in a Mark III Jaeger. They hit Knifehead with plasma cannon blasts, multiple direct shots. The thing goes down, or so they think. Knifehead feigns a retreat, waits for the pilots to let their guard down, and then comes back swinging. But it doesn't just attack randomly, it targets the con pod, the cockpit. The second it detects structural weakness in Gypsy's chest armor, it changes strategy and goes straight for the pilots. That's not animal behavior, that's tactical thinking. It tears through the hull, rips Yancey Beckett out of the cockpit, and kills him. A category 3 just murdered a Jaeger pilot and nearly destroyed a frontline mech solo. The only reason Gypsy survives at all is because Raleigh, now piloting alone with half his neural link gone, shoves the plasma cannon point blank into Knifehead's face and fires. That's what it took. A half-dead Jaeger, one pilot running on adrenaline and grief, and a point-blank shot against a category 3. But if Knifehead cracked the illusion of Jaeger supremacy, wait until you see what punched straight through humanity's plan B, Mutavore. Mutavore is the first category 4 kaiju we see during the actual events of the film, and its job isn't to win a fight. Its job is to embarrass an entire political strategy on live television. Here's the context. By 2025, world governments have essentially given up on the Jaeger program. Too expensive, too many losses. Their brilliant alternative? A giant wall. Billions of dollars of concrete and steel stretching across coastlines, sold to the public as humanity's impregnable shield against the kaiju threat. Mutavore punches through it in about 1 minute. The Sydney anti-kaiju wall, this monument to political short-termism, crumbles like wet cardboard the moment a category 4 decides to lean on it, and it happens on camera. The whole world watches their billion-dollar security blanket get shredded by something that Striker Eureka then kills relatively quickly. 0 Jaeger kills on its record. Not even a close fight once the actual robots show up. But here's the thing, Mutavore doesn't need a kill count to matter. Its real damage is political and psychological. It proves definitively that static defenses cannot keep pace with kaiju evolution. You can't just build a bigger wall when the things hitting it keep getting stronger. At least Mutavore only broke through a wall. The next one moves fast enough to make that look like a minor inconvenience. Raiju is what happens when the precursors build a kaiju shaped like a missile. Named after a Japanese thunder beast, this thing is pure pursuit predator. Streamlined, crocodilian, hydrodynamic, every single part of its body exists for one purpose: closing distance fast and hitting hard when it gets there. Its head splits open laterally, revealing an inner jaw that can envelop an entire Jaeger limb and clamp down like a biological vice. It charges Gypsy Danger underwater at a speed no other kaiju matches, locked on like a torpedo with teeth. But here's the thing about glass cannons: they shatter. Raiju bites down on Gypsy's arm, commits fully, and Raleigh activates the chainsword. One swing, clean bisection. The fastest category 4 in the Breach's arsenal dies in roughly 4 seconds of actual combat, which is, not ideal if you're trying to stop a nuclear payload from entering your dimension. The precursors clearly traded armor and bulk for raw interception speed here, a fighter jet philosophy applied to bioengineering. But speed without durability means one mistake is fatal, and Raiju made exactly one mistake. Still, if that sword hadn't been there, Gypsy loses an arm and the entire mission changes. That's worth remembering. But Raiju's partner in the Breach defense, built with the opposite philosophy entirely: Scunner. Most kaiju want to destroy cities. Scunner doesn't care about cities. Scunner has one job: make sure nothing gets through to the Breach, and it's disturbingly good at that job. This is a category 4 built like a biological fortress. Rhino-like horns, heavy armor plating, a body designed less for speed and more for standing in one spot and making sure you regret ever showing up. While Raiju is darting around like an oversized torpedo, Scunner is planted near the Breach like a bouncer who bench presses submarines. Here's what makes it scary. During the final mission in 2025, Scunner engages both Gypsy Danger and Striker Eureka simultaneously in deep ocean combat. It takes hits from both Jaegers, keeps fighting, and maintains full combat effectiveness under pressures that would crush most structures flat. Multiple direct hits, doesn't care, keeps swinging. And here's the kicker: conventional weapons cannot kill this thing. The only thing that puts Scunner down is Striker Eureka detonating its nuclear payload at point-blank range, a sacrificial explosion that destroys Striker in the process. You need a nuclear bomb to finish it. That's not a kaiju you beat. That's a kaiju you trade a Jaeger for. But if you think requiring a nuke to die is impressive, wait until you hear about a category 4 that can shut down every Jaeger on the battlefield without even touching them: Leatherback. Leatherback is where the kaiju stopped just being giant monsters and turned into full-on weapons platforms. This category I4 beast sports a gorilla-like build, but what really sets it apart is its groundbreaking EMP capability. Deployed to Hong Kong in 2025, Leatherback becomes the franchise's first kaiju to bring electronic warfare to the fight, outright shutting down Jaegers instead of just smashing them. Before you write this off as just a fancy power, hear me out. Leatherback's EMP burst disables Cherno Alpha, Crimson Typhoon, and even a chunk of the local electronics with one pulse. Imagine a robot so big and strong it doesn't bother punching, it just flips the power switch instead. That EMP turns the tide instantly. Cherno Alpha goes down with a crushed head, Crimson Typhoon is crippled, and the staggered Jaegers can't respond. It racks up multiple Jaeger kills through this blend of tech disruption and brute force. Here's the kicker: Leatherback is only defeated by Gypsy Danger because it's nuclear powered, making it immune to the EMP shutdown. This clearly exposes a critical vulnerability in the Jaeger design that the precursors have exploited. The moment Leatherback arrives, it's no longer just about physical strength, it's a strategic escalation. The precursors aren't just throwing animals at humanity anymore. They understand our tech and have engineered kaiju to counter it directly. Leatherback changes the game by introducing electronic warfare into kaiju combat. That means Jaegers aren't just muscle anymore. They have to be resilient tech fortresses. But if you think that was bad, wait until you see the agility and killing efficiency of the next kaiju. Otachi. Otachi is the Swiss Army knife of kaiju, and I mean that in the most terrifying way possible. Most category 4 creatures have one thing they're good at. Leatherback has its EMP, Knifehead has its blade, Otachi has flight, corrosive acid, a weaponized prehensile tail, and a backup baby. It's not a kaiju, it's an entire loadout. Here's what makes Otachi genuinely ridiculous. The Hong Kong fight doesn't stay in one place. It starts in the harbor, moves through city streets, then goes vertical into the upper atmosphere. 3 completely different combat environments in a single engagement. Most kaiju force Jaegers to fight on their terms in one domain. Otachi forces them to fight on its terms in all of them. That acid spit alone would make it dangerous. Corrosive fluid that melts through Jaeger armor like wet cardboard, but then it wraps its prehensile tail around Gypsy Danger, sprouts wings nobody knew it had, and drags a 2,000-ton mech into the stratosphere, which is, not ideal. That moment where Gypsy is getting hauled toward the edge of space with 0 options left is what forces the chainsword reveal. One of the most iconic moments in the entire franchise exists because Otachi left the pilot pilots with literally nothing else to try. And after it dies, an unborn kaiju crawls out of its body, even in death, still deploying threats. There is no safe distance from this thing, but if you think versatility is scary, wait until you see what raw engineered aggression looks like. Shrikethorn, here's where the precursors finally decided to stop playing fair. Shrikethorn is the first kaiju from Pacific Rim Uprising to land on this list, and it earns its spot by doing something no kaiju before it ever bothered to do: shoot back. This thing is a quadrupedal artillery platform covered in glowing spines that it launches like biological missiles, not up close, not in a grapple. From across the battlefield, raining down explosive quills on Jaegers that haven't even closed the distance yet, which is, not ideal when your entire defense strategy assumes the monster is going to politely walk into punching range. Deployed in 2035 during the Precursor's renewed invasion, Shrikethorn converges on Tokyo alongside Hakuja and Raijin as part of a coordinated 3 kaiju strike force. And that coordination is the key detail here. This isn't a mindless beast charging at the nearest city. Shrikethorn hangs back and bombards. Its spine barrages tear into Guardian Bravo and Titan Redeemer before those Jaegers can even mount a proper offense. It softens targets from distance while its partners handle the close quarters work. The Precursors clearly studied their losses from the First War and thought, why are we sending kaiju into melee range against giant robots with swords? Fair point. Shrikethorn is the answer to that question, a walking artillery battery that turns open ground into a kill zone. But if Shrikethorn turns the battlefield into a shooting gallery, wait until you see what its partner does to the ground beneath your feet. Hakuja, every defense humanity has ever built, assumes the threat is coming from the horizon. Walls, turrets, Jaeger formations, all of it oriented outward and upward. Hakuja doesn't care about any of that, because Hakuja comes from below. This thing is essentially a giant armored serpent designed exclusively for tunneling. Deployed during the 2035 Tokyo Convergence, Hakuja burrows beneath the entire battlefield and erupts underneath buildings and Jaegers alike. No warning, no radar signature, just the ground opening up and swallowing everything standing on it. Here's where it gets tactically terrifying. You can reinforce a wall. You can armor a Jaeger's chest plate. You cannot make the earth beneath a city structurally sound when a massive kaiju is swimming through it like a worm through wet soil. Hakuja doesn't fight you. It removes the ground you're standing on. Jaegers lose footing. Buildings pancake into sinkholes. Defensive lines collapse into rubble. The battlefield itself stops existing, and it's not operating alone. While Shrikethorn rains spine artillery from range and Raijin tanks everything head on, Hakuja is the ambush specialist undermining the foundation of whatever formation the Jaegers try to hold. The Precursors essentially covered every axis of attack, front, distance, and below. That's not a monster, that's a military doctrine. Hakuja might not hit the hardest of the 3, but it's arguably the most terrifying. You can see Raijin coming, you can dodge Shrikethorn's projectiles, you cannot dodge the ground disappearing beneath your feet. But if Hakuja represents the nightmare below, Raijin is the unstoppable wall directly in front of you. Raijin, every kaiju fight in this franchise operates on the same basic principle. Hit the monster hard enough, and it goes down. Raijin breaks that rule completely. This Category 5 kaiju from Pacific Rim Uprising is the Precursor's direct answer to the entire Jaeger combat doctrine. Its trifold head structure isn't just for show. It houses a reactive energy-absorbing carapace that closes over vital areas when struck, soaking up kinetic energy like a sponge. The harder you hit Raijin, the stronger it gets, which is, not ideal when your entire military strategy revolves around punching things really hard. Here's where it gets complicated. That absorbed energy doesn't just disappear. Raijin can release it as devastating shockwaves, essentially turning your own attacks against you. Every punch Gypsy Avenger throws is a deposit into Raijin's revenge savings account, and this thing tanks hits from everyone. Gypsy Avenger, Bracer Phoenix, Guardian Bravo, and Titan Redeemer all open fire simultaneously, and Raijin just stands there, armored plate snapping shut, absorbing it all. 4 advanced generation Jaegers throwing everything they have, and the kaiju treats it like a light massage. The only way to actually damage this thing is to abandon brute force entirely and coordinate flanking attacks on its unarmored zones, the brief windows when its plates are open. It forces pilots to think instead of fight, which, for giant robot operators trained to smash things, is basically asking them to solve a Rubik's Cube mid-fist fight. Fans constantly debate whether Raijin is actually stronger than Slattern, given that it withstands more advanced Jaegers and requires tactical innovation to even scratch. But speaking of Slattern, let's talk about the original Category 5 and whether it still deserves the crown. Slattern, everything the PPDC built was designed to handle Category 5. Every strategy, every weapon system, every contingency plan topped out at 4. Then Slattern crawled out of the breach and none of it mattered anymore. This is the first confirmed Category 5 Kaiju in franchise history. Not speculated, not estimated, confirmed. And the moment it appears, the entire playbook goes in the trash. Slattern is the guardian of the breach itself, deployed only after the precursors realize humanity is actually knocking on their door. 3 massive club-tipped tails, a body that dwarfs every Category Ashfar Kaiju encountered before it, and a level of durability that borders on the absurd. During the final assault, Slattern takes simultaneous hits from both Striker Eureka and Gypsy Danger. 2 Jaegers, coordinated attack everything they've got. Slattern shrugs it off, cripples Striker, and forces the pilots into a sacrificial nuclear detonation just to clear the field. Here's where it gets properly ridiculous. Slattern survives a nearby nuclear explosion and keeps fighting, a nuke, at close range, and it gets back up. The only thing that actually kills this creature is Gypsy Danger, physically carrying it into the breach and detonating its reactor from the inside. That's not a strategy, that's a suicide run because nothing else works. And that's exactly the point. Slattern doesn't just represent a stronger kaiju, it represents the moment the kaiju war became unwinnable through conventional means. You can't build a bigger Jaeger fast enough. You can't hit it harder. The only option left is to blow yourself up and hope it's enough, which is, you know, not ideal. But if Slattern broke the scale by being one monster, wait until you see what happens when 3 of them merge into a single entity. Mega Kaiju, the category system breaks here. It just stops working. Every kaiju up to this point exists within a framework humanity built to classify the threat. Category 1 through 5, neat little boxes that tell you how many Jaegers to send and how many people to evacuate. The Mega Kaiju doesn't fit in a box. It ate the box. It ate 3 boxes simultaneously and became something the scale was never designed to measure. Here's what happens. Tokyo 2035. Raijin, Hakuja, and Shrikethorn are already tearing through the city. 3 category 4 to 5 kaiju working in perfect coordination. That should be the final boss, but the precursors look at 3 of the most dangerous creatures ever deployed and think, no, merge them. Rippers latch onto the 3 giants and force them together into a single fused organism, and what crawls out of that biological car crash makes Slattern look like a warm-up round. The Mega Kaiju inherits everything. Raijin's energy-absorbing armor, Hakuja's structural resilience, Shrikethorn's offensive spines, all compressed into one body that immediately starts destroying everything in its path. Bracer Phoenix gone. Multiple advanced generation Jaegers crippled or wrecked. The thing has the highest on-screen Jaeger kill count in the entire franchise, and it's not even trying that hard. It's walking toward Mount Fuji because if its blood reaches that magma chamber, the resulting eruption triggers a global extinction event. That's not a battle. That's an apocalypse on a schedule, and nothing stops it. Not 4 Jaegers working together, not concentrated firepower. The only thing that kills the Mega Kaiju is Gypsy Avenger dropping from orbit in a kamikaze atmospheric re-entry strike, essentially turning itself into a meteor. That's what it takes. A Jaeger falling from space, which raises a question nobody has answered. The precursors fused 3 kaiju and nearly ended the world. What happens when they fuse 10? The category system doesn't have a number for that, neither do we. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.